Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joined today, she's an entrepreneur and graphic designer. It's Caroline Haldeman. How you doing today, Caroline?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing so good. We are excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
Sure. I am from Greenville, North Carolina, so Eastern North Carolina. Growing up, I was a total bookworm, and so love to read, and also I love the water. So luckily, I live kind of close to the beach, so I love the water. Always want to be in the pool, the ocean. Those are like my two main things.
Growing up, what were those books that you enjoyed? Were you
Mhm.
nonfiction, the mystery, the fiction, a certain author? What were those favorites?
Honestly, when I was young, I would read anything I could get my hands on. So I liked nonfiction. I like Harry Potter. I read Twilight. I was not a picky reader. For me, it was just like a good escape. It brought me to a whole different world outside of my life. So I love to read, but mysteries, I read mysteries a lot today.
I was never a fan of reading, but the only
Hmm.
books I loved reading were the nonfictions. Like learning about
Okay.
someone's lives, like you might have that idol or that someone that you know from media, TV, and then you read like the biography of the athlete and you're like, I
Hmm.
did not know about this. And it's so interesting. And I think as I gotten older, it's like, okay, reading kind of went away, but it's like social media, you're reading every article that's out
Hmm.
there. You mentioned your love for water. Did you have
Hmm.
a sport, something favorite, like surfing or swimming that you enjoyed?
Um, no, I'm terrible at sports. I don't have an athletic bone in my body. Like I know how to swim, but I would never swim competitively. It's just for fun.
Growing up, did you have someone that was a big influence in your life, someone that played a big role and motivated you?
Yes, definitely my dad, and he's still one of my biggest motivators today. He was kind of like a safe space for me growing up. Not all the time, but he was there for me very much so, despite other things we were going through. And he always put me and my sister first over everything. So, especially for parenting, he's a really good role model for in that way. And then also, he was working like two jobs, going to college, and taking care of me and my sister. I'm like, whoa. Like he really did that. So he did anything that he had to do to like take care of us. And I will appreciate him forever for that.
You just mentioned about him being kind of a safe space, someone to talk
Hmm.
to. What were those challenges growing up that really played a big part in your life?
Sure, yeah. So my mom, she actually has bipolar disorder, which I do as well. But sometimes when things are unmanaged, it can be really hard. Um, so like my mom had this big like psychotic episode, and she was always there, but she'd be in and out of like treatment hospitals. And I saw some challenging things. As a child, I didn't know what was going on. It was really scary. And also at the time, my mom and I, she was like very, I guess, verbally abusive. So I felt like my dad was he was definitely my protector.
Do you feel that you were able to express what was going on in the household with people outside of the household, like your friends, other family members, or was it something that you kind of kept inside and didn't really want to share?
Mhm. Yeah, I did not talk about it with my friends. There may have been a time or two where I tried to open up, but I felt like they were judging me. And also, like, despite everything that my mom may have put me through, like, I know it was the best that she could have done. And so I kept it quiet because I didn't want people to judge her. And then also, I don't think at the time I knew how to even express my feelings, because I developed depression and anxiety from a very young age, and that was very much so something that I went through alone. So I no, I did not open up.
Did you have anything that helped you with going through depression and
Hmm.
anxiety? Like, was the beach kind of something that you
Hmm.
used, or were there other
Yeah.
items?
I'll be honest, as far as like being a child, like I would say my whole life, I know. I did not know how to manage what I was going through at all because I don't even think I fully understood what was going through. and I didn't really know how to talk to my dad either because he was so busy taking care of my mom. Like I was just like, I don't want to take his time. Um, I like I I wrote stories sometimes. But like there wasn't anything consistently that helped me. It was honestly just a big struggle throughout like my teen years.
As you're getting older, that fun question of what do you want to do when you grow up or that
Hmm.
dream job, what
Hmm.
was that for you during that time?
Honestly, I have probably had 50 career ideas. I I just decided what I want to do with my life like a year ago. So like I wanted to be a cardiologist, I wanted to be an astronaut, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a singer. Anything that you could think of, I wanted to do. I have a lot of interests, so sometimes I have trouble just focusing on one thing. So as a child, I had no clue.
I think with all those different titles that you mentioned, we're
Mhm.
hitting all the different industries right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any of those like that you thought of that kind of
Hmm.
could be like hobbies in the future?
Hmm.
Because you talk about you just kind of found that career choice that you wanted just a
Hmm.
year ago, but you never know what can happen in the future. You could have those hobbies turn into a career.
Yeah, so over time, like I do graphic design. It's not a full-time job for me. I do it for fun. I don't really want to do it for a living. But I was self-taught. So that was like a hobby that's been really cool. Kind of just seeing how I've gotten so much better over the years because I started around 2019 and I look at my old stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so ugly. So that's definitely a hobby. Even though it's not necessarily my career, it's still a big part of my life. And it's, of course, very helpful with my business. I can do my own graphics, I can design my own website.
Did you go in the towards of education right out of high school, or did you go
Mhm.
right into the workforce and wanted to get out there?
Mhm. Yeah, so I actually went right to college, but I didn't last very long. I dropped out from my first college, I believe, halfway through my sophomore year. So I went to school for about a year and a half. I was not in a good mental place at all. It was really hard for me to like even go to class. I didn't even want to get out of bed, you know. And so I ended up moving back home because moving away from home was just a lot. And so I've been going to school on and off for 8 years, but I finally graduated actually a couple weeks
Woohoo!
ago. So yeah.
Definitely, I think a lot of students
Mhm.
can relate with
Mhm.
moving from a far distance from home to go to college. I went
Mhm.
to school and I was 30 minutes away, but I'm a family
Yeah.
guy. So it's
Yeah.
like being away, living somewhere else 24/7. It was tough because you
Mhm.
get in that routine for 18 years and you come
Mhm.
home, you're with your family, and now you're in a whole dynamic.
Mhm.
What would you say that coming back, that was that the right decision? Do you think if you stayed there longer, it would have been more detrimental because you
Mhm.
were having going through mental health and all of that?
Mhm. There was a long time that I regretted moving home because the previous institution I was at was like a really, really, really good school. Like they call it a public Ivy. Um, so coming home and going to community college, which of course is absolutely nothing wrong with it, but to
Yep.
me, it didn't feel right. And I just didn't understand, all my friends were graduating college. I still hadn't because when you're just trying to get through the day, I don't have the brain capacity to do homework when I can't even shower. I can't even so I would say it was better for me to move home even though things were still hard for a while. I really liked being back home with my little sister, especially being back with my friends because I didn't really make a lot of friends in college. So even though things are still chaotic with my parents, I definitely had my friends and my sister.
What was the kind of the goal that you wanted?
Mhm.
You're being home, still going to
Mhm.
school, but did you kind of find jobs here and there to kind of keep you
Mhm.
busy so that you're still doing what you want to do, but
Mhm.
still being with at home?
Oh, I always worked. I've had a job since I was 16. So in college, at my first institution, I had 3 jobs at one point. And then when I moved home, I've always worked really hard, like full time. So that's also challenging to focus on school when you're working so much. But it wasn't any like really fulfilling jobs. It was just, like working in restaurants, working at stores. So it was more so just making money. It wasn't anything that I was actually like cared about for real. It was just, you gotta live.
During this time, was the trauma that you've gone through, was it really playing an effect where professional, personal, education, it was hard to balance all three of those together and getting out there, friends, relationships, and things like that were challenging.
hmm Yeah, it was everything was just a challenge. Because I really I don't think I even fully understood my trauma. Like I was going through self-harm, and at this point I hadn't really had solid diagnoses yet, so I still didn't fully know what was going on with me. But yeah, it was working was really hard because I used to have panic attacks, and like I would go hide in the bathroom, and it's like, how can you work like that, And I was just very like I had a lot of mood swings. I would just have like fits of tears. And so at this point in my life, let's say around like 2018, 2019, that's when I moved back. I don't even think I knew I was traumatized at that point. Like I was just all over the place, emotions. I was very unstable, but I don't think I really knew why. So it took me a little bit to, I know looking back, I know I was having triggers, but at the time I didn't know it.
Did anyone kind of tell you they noticed a
hmm
change in how
hmm
maybe you were behaving and they were really concerned about
hmm
if everything was okay and wanted to
hmm
help you in any way possible?
Um, my dad, he tried to help. Like he got me in to see a psychiatrist and a therapist, but I wasn't ready for that. So my dad, like, I I only went to therapy for like a couple of sessions. I took my meds for maybe 2 months. So that was kind of a me thing. I wasn't ready to come to terms with that. I really needed that extra help because I was like, it's not me. I'm not going to have those problems. So my dad was definitely trying to help, but you can't be helped if you're not ready for it either.
Is that something that if you're looking at that time when your dad
Mhm.
was helping, other people could probably say the same thing where it's one of those that you have to be self-ready. A lot of people
Mhm.
can tell you, oh, you should go do this, but
Mhm.
you're the person that has to go and do it.
Mhm.
You're ready for it or ready for that change. What would
Mhm.
you tell someone who's going through something similar about the self-readiness process? And
Mhm.
when do they feel that they have to really come to terms or know how to get to that moment?
Yeah, so that's a little tricky for me. I actually didn't even fully come to terms with what was going on with me until I attempted suicide. Like things had to get that bad for me to be like, "Whoa, this is not okay." Um, so ultimately, like, don't force yourself to get help. Like, if you feel like if you feel like you should go to therapy, but you don't want to, like, if you're not ready, you're really not gonna get that much out of it. So it sounds as corny, but like I feel like you can just feel it. You know what I mean? Like don't let other people try to force you into stuff either. Of course, people care and they want to help, but at the end of the day, you know what you need. So just I would say you kind of got to just be calm and try to just listen to yourself and like trust your intuition.
As a survivor of a suicide attempt,
Mhm.
what was kind of the moment that kind of told you, I can't go through with this? I need to, there's people in my life that I need to be here for. There's a moment. What
Mhm.
was that kind of thing that kept you going away from doing that?
Well, I actually did attempt. So luckily, I was able to go to the hospital. And they were able to get everything. I took some pills, so they were able to get everything out of me. Then I was in and out of the psychiatric hospital for a long time. It was just really hard because I have kids and people. I know, but I notice a lot of people think it's very selfish for like, how could you have suicidal thoughts when you have kids? They need you. But when I was in that headspace, I genuinely felt like they'd be better off without me. I felt that way about everyone in my life. I'm like, I'm just a burden. I'm not stable. Like I was having trouble taking care of my house, taking care of my kids. Um, So I do want to just put that out there. Like, it's not, suicide is not selfish. It's real. But kind of what was the breaking point for me was actually it was my third hospitalization. And actually a social worker told me that they were going to open a case and try to take my kids from me. And that was really scary for me because that was part of the reason why I didn't get help because I was scared of that, especially as a mother going through postpartum. People really judge you for that. Um, so that was kind of the breaking point. I was like, this is getting really scary. Of course, I always loved my kids. I always took very good care of them. But I was like, this is my third hospitalization in 1 year. I don't want to go through this anymore. So I actually, after I got out of the hospital for the third time, I ended up going on a plane to Florida to a residential treatment center, and that was the turning point. If I had not went there, I don't know where I'd be. That was what I needed. So I was just that was kind of a turning point. I was like, I can't keep going to the hospital. I need some intense, I was there for like a month, and that was the turning point for me.
What time frame was that?
Mhm.
Like what year was all the treatment during?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I haven't been the best about years or being the
No,
moment
you're good.
clear.
You're good.
Yeah. So, quick little, let's back up a little. I had my son in 2020 during COVID. Well, I had him in January, which was before the lockdown, but my husband was an essential worker, so he was working crazy hours. It was me and my son stuck in the house. And then I unexpectedly got pregnant with my daughter. I was on birth control, but my son was only 6 months old. So I had another child before I had even healed from my postpartum with my son. So then it was like just a double whammy. Um, and yeah, it was just like I had my daughter 2021, super hard. 2022 is when everything came. 2022 is when all this happened. So my first hospitalization was in February. Then my suicide attempt was in July. My next hospitalization was November, and finally December of 2022. That was when I went to that treatment center in Florida for a month, and that was that big turning point. So 2023, I will say things got harder when I got home from treatment before they got better because it just took me a long time to get on the right medication. But yeah, 2023 was still very hard, but over time it got better. So that kind of brought me to where I am today.
With the lockdown, it
Hmm.
was a challenging time for all people, and
Yes.
especially with being stuck in the house. You can't really do much. You could, but you had to take those safety precautions.
Hmm.
Do you think the lockdown made it challenging for you, or do you feel that it kind of made you kind of reflect in those times?
Hmm.
But sometimes reflection can be dangerous because you might
Hmm.
think about something overly and not in the right mindset. How did that play a role with the lockdown?
I got nothing good out of the lockdown. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I I had really severe anxiety my whole life, but once I had my son, it got the most severe that it ever was. I was even scared for my husband to come home because I'm like, he's bringing COVID in the house. I was so scared. I had this newborn baby. So I was like even nervous about having my family come over. So yeah, it really was just me stuck at home with my thoughts. And I don't do the best with like a long time. Like I like to keep myself busy because I don't want to be stuck with those thoughts. So I would say that COVID definitely played a big part in like my continued decline with my mental health. So it was not a good time at all.
With your husband, did you
Mhm.
were you able to express those things, or was he able to help in any way to kind of heal you or during
Mhm.
post the treatment?
Yeah, so when I got my treatment in 2022, my husband is my biggest supporter, hands down. Also, big shout out to his parents. They kept my kids while my husband was working so I could go to treatment. He's been my biggest supporter. He's believed in me when I don't believe in myself. He has always seen like good things in me that at one point I couldn't see with myself. So he's been my number one supporter. I can literally come to him Like I can vent to him about anything. Like he's a really good listener. When I want advice, he offers really good advice. And my husband's several years older than me, so it also helps that he kind of has like some more life experience and wisdom. Because he went through kind of his self development journey long before I did, just because of our age difference. So a lot of the stuff that he learned over time was things that I just hadn't come to terms with yet. So he has a lot of wisdom, a lot of good advice, and he's really good at keeping a positive attitude. So I'm just so grateful for him because I know a lot of men probably wouldn't have stuck by me with everything that I went through. So he's just the best.
With motherhood, what's been a
Mhm.
moment that has been a positive impact for you being a mother?
Yeah. So one big thing, especially when I came back from treatment and 2023 began, I was still really struggling, but something that I kind of came to terms with when I can't get out of bed for myself, do it for my kids. And that's what I tell myself. And obviously that's easier said than done. But also, it was kind of just, I really wanted to get myself under control because I didn't want my kids to see some of the things that I saw. So just, I was like, I gotta get better. Like, I really want to be the best mom that I can be. I don't want to repeat cycles. So they really are my biggest motivator, especially through college as well. I struggled so much with college. It's just, I want to do it for them. I want to break cycles. I want to, in ways like my parents are great, but I try to be the mom that some things that were maybe missing, I try to make sure I do all that for my kids. So just trying to heal the whole family. It's healing is not just an individual journey, I think it's like family, friends. It's kind of like just a bit, it encompasses a lot of parts of your life.
Especially if there is a moment that's gone through that individual, it kind of can make a little cracks in other areas with
Hmm.
friendships and family
Hmm.
relationships.
Hmm.
And people have to look at those like those people are playing a factor when it, and that healing process can really bring the strength and bonds within those relationships and those friendships, even that you kind of look at it and they're like, wow, those people were there for me. Or like you said with your husband, like how supportive he was. And it just brings you guys even closer together
Hmm.
because of going through that healing process.
Yeah, for sure. But I will say you're going to lose people on your healing journey
Oh,
as
yeah.
well because you kind of wake up to the BS. Like you start noticing all these cycles, like with your grandparents, aunts, and uncles. And it's like, wow, this has been going on for a long time. And this isn't just with family, it's with friends. If you're around people that are bringing you down, always talking negative, maybe just you're going to have to cut some relationships if it's not healthy and it's bringing you down. You're gonna like you have to move on, and that doesn't mean you never have to talk to them again. You just gotta boundaries is such a cliche word, but it's really true. If you only want to talk to them once a month, only talk to them once a month. So of course family and friends can be your best supporters, but sometimes they could do the exact opposite of that too.
Talk about a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. What is that company and what is the big mission behind it?
Mhm. Sure. So my company is called Minds Over Matter NC. The NC is simply for North Carolina because it's kind of a common name. So I'm like, let's add that so people know where we're from. So my primary goal is not to make money. My primary goal is educating and raising awareness about mental illness. I've also done various like fundraising initiatives for groups such as NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So that's my number one goal is like just doing social media posts. I like go live on Facebook and have people share their stories. That's my number one goal because I didn't know what I was going through. I didn't know what borderline personality disorder was or what bipolar disorder was. So I just try to educate people, about there's different types of therapies, there's different types of treatment options, and just educating people about various, honestly, anything. So that's my number one goal. But I do have to make money. So with my graphic design skills, I've created like guided journals. They're not just blank journals, you just open up and it's lines. Um, I make lots of different journals. I've made some teen journals. I've made like a self-care journal for social workers, for teachers, for moms. And those are available on my website. But as far as my other products, I have some products, but they're not on my website yet. Like I sell like stress. I have like some different stress balls that I've come up with. Like I have these pens with affirmations on it. I have a lot of different stuff, but those are not on my site yet. I saw those in person at like various vendor events. But even when I go to my events, I'm still not there to make money. I'm really there to talk to people and educate people because you'd be surprised. Like, there's people that really don't know about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what's most rewarding to me is just the education factor.
When you do those Facebook lives and when
Mhm.
you hear people share their stories or connect and have a similar journey that you've been on, what does that mean to you that you're bringing a community together and sharing and really feeling the kind of the love that everyone's giving because you're all there to support each other. You're there to really spread awareness and really be not accountable, but be there for each other to know that you're there with them, no matter where you're located in this world.
It's honestly the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. Like I've after lives, like for example, last July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So that was the I did like a series of lives like in a whole week. I had various people come on. And I mean, I had people from Facebook that maybe I haven't talked to since like elementary school, or people that I don't even know reaching out to me like, wow, like, thank you for doing this. I feel so heard. The people, of course, I had no idea struggle with anything like that. So that's what's most rewarding to me is that people are actually noticing what I'm doing and I'm getting like positive feedback. And that's what really keeps me going.
With doing those Facebook Lives, going on podcasts, why do you feel the time is now to share your story, share the authentic moments that you've gone through in your life?
I'm not gonna lie, I was really scared to go public about my issues, terrified. And there's even times now where I'm like, why did I tell people all that? But there's some days where I don't want to talk about it, but I still do because I just remember how alone I was as a teenager. And I mean, like, my parents knew I was cutting myself. They didn't do anything. Like, I asked to go to therapy. I wasn't. So mainly like just normalizing it. Like we need to have these conversations. Also, just breaking down, like I said, different treatment options. It's I really now's the time, especially because after COVID, I know depression and anxiety like shot up. And so it's just like I can't be quiet, even though maybe it feels better to be quiet. Like I feel like I owe the world to do this. Like I truly believe that I went through everything that I went through so that I could kind of be that voice for this. So yeah.
You mentioned how the timing and all this, and I always feel that someone sharing their story, someone that's listening might not have that confidence or they might feel alone. And hearing that person on the other side in their earbuds, they feel something and they feel that connection with that person. And that small second, that small minute that they're listening to it might give them some sort of confidence to reach out to that individual or reach out to someone that they know and really share and be open about it and really share what's going on. And that can kind of help them in that healing process or that
Mhm.
process of recovery and really kind of motivate. So I always feel that everyone has a story out there of something that they might be going through or something that has challenged them. And everyone should be able to voice it when they're ready and comfortable to do that.
I definitely agree. And also, I tell people all the time, like, I don't care if I've never met you in my life. I have no clue who you are. Message me. Like, you can DM me, follow me on all my social medias. Like, I always want to listen because I didn't have that. And I know how scary it is. And especially, I dealt with a lot of shame, especially like as a mom. I'm like, I shouldn't be going through this. I got to take care of my kids. So that's a big thing too. Not just encouraging people to reach out, but just letting them know, yo, like you're not alone. Like lots of people go through this. And then also, I think it's really motivating to see people who have recovered. So you can see like it is possible. It really does get better. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I really believe that everybody can get better. It's always possible.
Something our listeners like is to learn even more about our guests. When you're not working, what do you like to do for fun that maybe people don't know you like to do?
Hmm. Well, I like to cook, which I'm really proud of because my mom's not much of a cook, so I'm self-taught. So I'm like, food, like everybody loves my food. Like I love it. All my sister and her friends, I'll be like, I'm cooking this tonight. Everybody wants to come over. So I'm like, I did that. I taught myself. So I enjoyed that. I still like to read. I read a lot of mysteries. And honestly, like I'm really busy. I work full time. I have kids. I just graduated school, but I'm gonna go back to school. So I have a ton of free time. We're still working on that. But I'm still like it sounds I like to I really like to go outside. It's not even like a hobby. I just like it's really good for me to get out of my house. I find the earth to be like very healing. Like I have a healing energy, just it's cleansing. So I like to just sit outside. It sounds silly, but I love it. I'll just go outside. It's very good for my mind.
What's your go-to dish you like to make?
Hmm. I make some really good shrimp and grits.
Oh,
And I make a really good barbecue, like it's a homemade barbecue, pork tenderloin. That's good too. But anything like barbecue chicken, I love barbecue. I can make it. But I'm actually, people say I'm better at baking than cooking. So I make a really good honey bun cake and a really good pineapple cake.
see, baking is not my specialty. I mean, I will probably be that person that one miss ingredient, one measurement, and it's like wrong. So I stick with the cooking. Other people can do the baking for me.
Yeah, I learned how to bake from my grandma. So that was something I learned very young. And then the cooking came a little later.
The final question I'll ask you for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
I would say you really just have to trust yourself. Like even when you don't feel like it, you really have it in you. Like I know that there's days where I still don't feel like that. But you really have to be like your number one cheerleader. Like nobody else can do this healing for you. Only you can do it. Only you can rise to the challenge. So I would say you just really need to trust yourself. Because everything that you need is in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere. You just gotta find it. So and just kind of self-discovery, discovering yourself. Because I just I didn't know who I was for a long time. And so I just kind of like floated through life. So once you really know who you are and you're comfortable with like just kind of following that intuition, I think that it just gets you where you need to be.
Caroline, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
And thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Tune in next time to hear my next guest talk about their rise to the challenge. Remember to follow, subscribe on all major audio platforms, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get full-length episode in video format. What path do you take to accomplish your goals? You decide.